All right, we are back. Next episode of Tech Tip Tuesdays. If you have not hit the like button on your way in, please do. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to share this with a friend. Don't forget to text this out, tweet, shooby dooby dooby, whatever you do to get it out to others. Make sure you do. As well as, don't forget, meetups on Wednesday from 8 to 10, as well as catch us every Saturday, every Saturday with our shows, Tech Stocks and Jobs, Howie Linux, and tomorrow's our meetup, and then we got recaps with the kneecaps. We got recaps on Thursday. Friday we'll be doing Messy Fridays. Got a lot of information set up. I just bought some books actually. Um, Money, Wealth, and Life Insurance. From the book that we from the show that we did on Saturday with Frank. I forget Frank Sluthermoth. Is that it? A Sluther something? Sluther something body. The Amp It Up book. I have that. I also bought our other guy. It I Will Teach You to Be Rich. His journal. I bought the journal. Right. I bought the journal. I just wanted to see what it was like. Give because women in Linux been looking at journals for you all to daily log your progress every day. So I actually like this journal. So may take a page out of his book on that. Let me see. D, what you talking about? Get my mouse over here. Oh yeah, his name is on the book. Anyway, and 1 million followers. How I built a massive social following in 30 days. I know one way to do it. I know one way to build a following. All I got to do is start cussing people out and start holding you accountable. That's one way. But nevertheless, that's where we're at. So, Tech Tip Tuesdays. What are we tech tipping about today? Our first show was about Dent OS and really how AWS used Dent OS and as far as edge computing and IoT devices and so forth, right? But that was cool, right? You got that book, Tim. Which book? The last one, Amp It Up or 1 million followers? What's going on, casual economists? Natasha D. Wayne Wallace was good. So today, I did want to make this announcement. I don't know if you caught it or not. I put it in the community tab. I put it in Women in Linux Slack. I have retweeted this and everything. If you haven't caught the show that we did with Rudy from Think Big Technologies, here shaping the future of cloud. Think Big's trailblazing vision with Rudy McComb. It was our first. It was our first of many. So if you have not checked it out, please check that out. You can follow him on YouTube. Let me get that up for you. So you can follow him on YouTube here. There, shaping the future of cloud. Think big, trailblazing the future. Don't forget to drop over there and follow him with Think Big Technologies, if you can, and check that out. And also, while you're checking it out, also go check out the website, thinkbig.com, and check out KubeCon EU. He did a write up on KubeCon EU. For those of you who are not familiar with KubeCon, we're going to get into some of that today with the Cloud Natives Summit as well. We're going to get into that, right? So, KubeCon EU, Think Big and Partners Pave the Way for Cloud Native Success. What in the world does that mean? That's what we're going to talk about today. Today is your tip to understand about how to move inside of tech and understanding Not just what we talked about, not just what we talked about when it comes to ensuring your career in terms of keeping your skills up, but how do you know how the market is moving? How do you watch the market? It's you could call this a tech tip, career tip, but this is also gets you in the door to understanding where people pull things from, how open source applications are built, how where do they stem from, and so forth. I won't do a deep dive on it, but I get you enough to get you started, and then you can be on your merry little way. All right. So go check out Cloud Native Con EU for Europe. If you're wondering what other cloud native events are happening, Cloud Native EU is happening in Amsterdam. There's also a ton of stuff going on that are co-located events around Amsterdam. ArgoCon, Selenium Con, Batch and HPC Day, WASM, and then Telco Day. Telco is huge, especially when it comes down to Kubernetes and K3s and edge devices, your Verizons, your AT&Ts, even your AWSs, your stores and your edge devices, your telephones, or I should say your cell phones, your tablets, whether it's a tablet from Google or what have you, right? Next up on the docket for EU, you got CD with GitOpsCon in Vancouver in May, Kubernetes Day in Turkey. You got Community Day around the world, just different events, right? Let's keep going. We got Italy, we got Mumbai. Shout out to Mumbai. They got their first Apple store. I don't know if y'all saw that. They got the first Apple store, and they're doing production inside of India as well too, to keep the cost low there as well. All right, so that's where we're at. So we got KubeCon is coming up in November in Chicago, November 6th to the 10th, right, in Chicago. So if you want to hit QCon up in the States, check out November the 6th through the 10th. What's going on, Crystal? What's going on down to Earth? All right. So next up, let me close these out one by one so we can keep up where we're at. All right, we did events. Yes. QCon, Cloud Native, EU. All right. So what is cloud native? Well, what I did was I went and pulled up cloud native from the perspective of CNCF, and then I went and pulled it up from the perspective of AWS, from the perspective of Oracle Cloud, from the perspective of um, GCP or Google Cloud, and then AWS. Let me see if DigitalOcean has one. Let me see that DigitalOcean cloud native. Let me see. Yeah, growing cloud native with DigitalOcean. They have a little something there, right? Growing cloud native. They have a series of videos here about the talk, what you would learn, and then the presenter, but not in depth like how I would want to be, right? All right, so let's go back over here. So there's the cloud native landscape, and then there's also the cloud native trail. Let me see if I can pull that up. Um, see, cloud native trail. See, yeah, it's a map. Let me see if I can pull that over for you. Come on, you can do it. Okay, doesn't want to do it. I don't know why. You want to give me a hard time today, but that's okay. All right, copy link. I wonder is GitHub dead? I don't want to download it. Let's go here. Cloud native trail. I don't know why GitHub wouldn't come automatically up. Oh, I guess I gotta download it. Okay, that's fine. All right, so here's the map. So along this journey of being cloud native, this is how most people use this map to help organizations go from being on premise, which you can have a cloud on prem, you can have your cloud on prem. And when I say that, I'm talking about AWS Outpost. And I'm gonna look up images so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about here. So here's AWS Outpost, right? And let me blow that up some and remove that. So here's AWS Outpost. They don't have no back end pictures on here. It looks like they only got front end pictures. But basically, this is cloud in a box, right? Azure Stack is another one. You can have Azure Stack um, on prem or in a or in a or in a data center. So here's how they got it set up where you would have like a hybrid type of situation because you'll be on prem. Let me see. So here they're showing you have Azure and Azure Stack here together, right? You have Azure and Azure Stack together, and then I think with GCP is Anthos, is the on-prem. You can even type GCP Anthos Cloud Native. Right, so hybrid cloud management with Anthos. It's really VMware with Kubernetes on it. Um, and you can pick and choose what you want to have, I think, for storage or whatnot. But that's really what that comes down to. Let me see if I can look at the image, see if they got a diagram. Yeah. So here we go. So this is what it would look like. You would have here you would have your cloud and your Google Cloud, your on-prem, other clouds and Edge, and then Anthos. Anthos leading cloud-centric container platform to run apps and so forth. And so you can run that inside of VMware as well too. That's really how they're using that. And then you got VMware, which is your really a bare metal which is a hypervisor that's installed onto a bare metal machine and going from there. Here's another picture for Anthos Kubernetes infrastructure to make developers more productive. Here's more of what it looks like. You can see here you got orchestration with Kubernetes, and then you have containers, and then the app, and then the API, and then some monitoring, and then you got some policy management. Then you have a service mesh up here. You can pull from the tool chains or the marketplace to help you with everything. And you can see here where you can be on-prem and in the cloud. So really that's what we're talking about here. How do we become cloud native? How do we become cloud native, right? All right, so with that being said, let's get into it. Let's close these out. First, we want to take monolithic applications, and in some cases, some people leave them monolithic applications without breaking them up. Why do I say that? Because some people like to lift and shift, and so breaking up the applications, meaning you have to have the right team. You need the size right because you don't want to burn and churn through your money. And then you want to also make sure that you understand what the application is doing, how to monitor it, what does the who needs to talk to the application. We're not talking external customers just yet, but internal. What needs to talk to that application? Is it a database? Is it some type of monitoring system? Is it some type of service mesh? Whatever the case may be, right? So you need to be familiar with that. So, and then also how to build a container, how to build a secure container. How do you secure the application? How do you secure the API? How do you secure the storage that needs to be attached to that container? How do you deploy that application and so forth? But first things first, let's move the application into a container. All right. Then, primarily speaking, you can build the container or you can use CI/CD to build the container because you need to scan the container because you need to search for vulnerabilities. All right. You need to know what those vulnerabilities are. You need to know if you're grabbing a container from a Docker repo And does that container contain some malware? Does it contain old code, or does it contain some malicious code? You need to know that part, right? So you need to do some scanning there. And with the CI/CD right here, and let me blow this cloud landscape up, and we'll start with one, and I'll read through two. So containerization, there are multiple ways we can have containers. All right, so we can have Podman, right? And let me break that down. Or we can have Docker containers, right? So, or CRI-O, CRI-O. Commonly done with Docker containers, any size applications and dependencies can be containerized. Over time, you should aspire towards splitting suitable applications and writing future functionalities as microservices. So instead of having a container that has that does three or four different things, that container does one job and it does it well, right? One job and it does it well. All right. So CI/CD, right? This is where you start using GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Travis CI, Circle CI, Jenkins. That's where you start playing in that realm. So now setting up continuous integration, continuous delivery. We often talk about this as continuous, but there's also a added value here: continuous testing, continuous security, continuous monitoring, continuous deployment, continuous integration. That's what you get with CI/CD: continuous integration, continuous delivery, right? So setting up continuous integration, continuous delivery, so that changes to your source code will automatically result in a new container being built, tested, and deployed to staging. Really, you want to do it in the development environment and then pushed up to staging, right? And eventually, perhaps to production. Oftentimes, you may not have a continuous delivery to production. You may do a manual push. So everything gets built, people test it out. They say, "Hey, are we ready to make those changes? Does anyone in production need more time to test, or are you doing some type of run for a client right now? Oh, you're not? Cool, great, boom, go ahead and do that deployment, right?" So the next one up is setting up automated rollouts, rollbacks, testing. Argo is a set of Kubernetes native tools for deploying and running jobs, application workflows, events using GitOps, the paradigm, such as continuous and progressively delivery of ML ops, machine learning ops, right? Number three, orchestration and application definition. This is your platforms like your OpenShift, OpenShift. Then you would have Rancher. You would have a platform like Vanilla Kubernetes, your AKS, your GKE, your EKS, or where you start looking at that, right? So Kubernetes is the market for orchestrating containers. In other words, who is the puppet master? I have all these containers out there on this cluster. Who controls them, right? Somebody got to control them. Somebody, you need to know where they land. You need to know what IP addresses they're working on, what ports to expose, what type of container is it in terms of the application, what type of application is it, where the log files being logged to, what who has access to what namespaces are they in, how large is the container, with the container repository. That's when you start getting into what should have got mentioned over there under CI/CD is JFrog, Artifactory, container registries. Because you build the container, you store the container somewhere, you need to do some continuous monitoring, security wise, and continuous scanning. Once the container is deployed, suppose the container got deployed on Tuesday, and then on Saturday night a vulnerability comes out, but you got probably 200 examples of that container in production. So now the question becomes is, how do you secure that container? What's going to be your protocol for highs and criticals? What's going to be your protocol for moderates and lows, right? Just so you need to have some type of strategy there. So usually you'll have security teams that have that strategy and so forth, right? The next up for this is observability. How do we know when the nodes are down? How do we know when I say nodes, the actual nodes themselves in a Kubernetes cluster? How do we know when the containers are down? How do we know if the VPN link that we have that's set up for people to access something that's down, right? Some type of observability. How do we know when to scale? How do we know when to descale or downscale? Like how do we know where traffic is coming from? How do we know that? And how do we know we got spikes? All these things we need to have some type of tool. So that's when you start looking at monitoring, logging, and tracing. Consider CNCF projects: Prometheus for monitoring, Fluentd for logging, Jaeger for tracing in applications. For tracing, look for an open tracing compatible implementation like Jaeger. And so they got their pictures here. All right. So that's number 4. Number 5, service proxy discovery and mesh. Service mesh. Service proxy, service discovery, service mesh. So a new service gets spawned up. We want to know what is that service linked to? How does it link back in? How does it know what it needs to link to as far as the discovery? In your YAML file, you would have all this written out in your YAML file. So core DNS, right? So I'm doing internal discovery within the Kubernetes cluster. Maybe I have some application that needs some public accessibility. Maybe I've written some C names, some A records out there. Maybe I don't. Maybe I got everything sitting behind maybe I had everything sitting behind my load balancer or what have you. Your SSL certs there. Envoy and Linkerd each enable service mesh architectures. They offer health checking, routing, and load balancing, right? So is the route to that application quick? Can I get there? Is there a delay? How many seconds delay? Am I monitoring that? You see that when you see that natively in AWS, but imagine pulling one level up from out of AWS onto your cluster, onto your Kubernetes services inside your cluster, right? So Envoy, Core DNS, and Linkerd. All right, networking. Everybody don't need access to everything, and everybody don't need to have access to different namespaces. They don't need to have access to different containers or different services. So we have what we call policies. So there's different types of policies. There's policies on who has access to what, but there's also networking policies, right? So to enable more flexible networking using CNI compliant network protocols like Calico, Flannel, WeaveNet. But you can go over these, and I'm going to show you something else that's going to totally have you confused, but it's okay. You just have to walk through it and then start understanding it. And then you can start looking at jobs that utilize those actual applications. All right, so Open Policy Agent is a general purpose policy engine uses ranging from authorization and administration control, admission control, to data filter. Falco is an anomaly detection engine for cloud native. Now you can use Falco inside of your building of your CI, building of your container as well too. Aqua Security has their thing in order to find out whether or not your container has some type of vulnerability, right? But you're looking for vulnerabilities. You're constantly producing vulnerabilities in these clusters from containers, from network policies, from people needing some type of access to do something else, right? So you're doing that. The next one is a distributed database storage. The data got to go somewhere. The data has to go somewhere. So we got options for running MySQL at scale through sharding. Rook is another storage orchestration that integrates diverse set of storage solutions into Kubernetes and so forth. And then they give you all the different ones that are here. This is old, so I think Rook has graduated by now. 8, streaming and messaging. When you need higher performance than JSON REST, consider gRPC or NATS. gRPC is a universal RPC framework. NATS is a multi-nodal messaging system that includes request, reply, pub, and sub, load balance queues, cloud events, and so forth. Next one up, container registry. There we go. It came up. There you go. Container registry. I went over that. You have an idea, right? And last but not least, software distribution. If you need to secure software, evaluate notary or implementation. Here, I would like to say software distribution supply chain. Like, where's that software coming from? How do you know the software that you pull down off the internet is not corrupt, right? Or has some type of hidden back door in it? How do you know the container you pulled down on your system and running on your system isn't hacking your system? How do you know, right? What are you using to monitor that? All right, so that was the cloud native trail map. Now here is the cloud native landscape. And the way this is broken down, let me blow this up some. The way this is broken down into different parts. So you can see here, I can come over here. The things that are up here that are blown up are more than likely what most people are using, but that's not to say other people don't use different things, right? So here's the database off that cloud native trail map, right? Here is messaging, right? Here is the application and image build. I know people are familiar with Helm charts, operators. I've mentioned KubeVirt before. This goes back into the original part of the conversation where I say you can have a monolithic application on a Kubernetes cluster, but this is where KubeVirt comes into play that allow you to build that onto a Kubernetes cluster. You also see down here, you got Packer down here. You have Raft as well too. On here, you have Chef Habitat as well. All right. So continuous delivery, integration and delivery. They got Argo. They also have Flux. They have Kepton. All right. And then you also have Open Cruise. I have not, it's in incubating. Those two have incubating. You want to probably stick with what's graduated if you're looking at this. All right. So now you got certified platforms for distribution. And I should go down, but I'm just gonna stop right here. Jennifer Jasmine, thank you so much for the tech ties. We appreciate you. All right. Um, Platforms. So these are what they consider cloud native platforms. AWS. I have pulled up here what AWS looks at as cloud native. And let me go back to it right here. So cloud native, they have a whole PDF on this right here, but let me get a good one. Cloud native um, AWS. I had one up last night. It is right here. All right, what is cloud native? Um, here they go talk about what is cloud native. How does cloud native approach benefit businesses? What is cloud native applications? What is CNCF? We're going through CNCF right now, and then we're gonna double back over to here. All right. So then that's the platform. If we scroll down, we have the scheduling and orchestration. Kubernetes, Crossplane, Volcano. Then you got service discovery, etcd, core DNS, remote procedure call, gRPC, service proxy. We have Envoy and Contour, and then you can look right here, AVI networks. So AVI networks actually has a call coming up here pretty soon that I signed up for. Let me get that right quick. So here, and then I'll pull it up right here. AVI networks. It's free to attend. But let me pull it up. Um, how can I pull this out? Let's do this. Join webinar. And I'll pull it out. Oh, it's making me join. That's not what I want. Let's go here. AVI Networks VMware. Let's go events. So AVI Network, here we go. Event list, event overview. Oh no, they got literally events. That's not what I want. I want the list of events that they got coming up. But anyway, AVI Networks it allows for multi-cloud load balancing. It's a 90-minute talk coming up, and they're going to talk about load balances and interactive, and you get an hour to play with the actual play with the actual lab and get a way to understand software defined application architecture for what is the architecture should be for modern load balancing of applications and services, what and how to create highly automated and consistent deployments across data centers and public clouds, and how to troubleshoot and garner application insights without the TCP dumps. That is coming up on April the 20th from 10 to 11:30 PDT is what they have here. So I signed up for that, but you can go and check out AVI Networks on YouTube and see if you're something you would be interested in, right? All right, so that's one here when we're talking about um, service proxy. Another one is the API gateway, and then your service mesh with Linkerd and Itch.io, and then down here is cloud storage. All right, so most people probably use something native in the cloud for their storage, but it then depends on what you're doing. You see, HP is on here. You see, Rook has graduated, right? So it depends on what you're using. Depends on that. Here, CRIO is what is used now in native Kubernetes. This is Container D. You'll normally find that you'll find Container D on Ubuntu, and in some cases, if somebody does use it, if they're still using it, I think at one, I know they had Podman on Red Hat, but I think Container D at one time was on Red Hat as well too. Selenium and CNI for cloud native. Then we got security and compliance, right? Security and compliance, where we start talking about, well, how do we secure our containers? How do we secure our network? How do we make sure that everything is the same, or you're not allowed to do something, right? So open policy agent, right? Container registries, Harbor, you can use something native to the cloud, container, the particular cloud in this container registry. Automation and configuration, we got Cube Edge, and then they got Ansible right here. They got Chef right here, CF Engine on here as well too. All right, so let's go back over here. Key management with Spree or Keycloak. A lot of people use Keycloak or Spiffy, and the list goes on. So you got Kubernetes service providers. We have Kubernetes training partners, certified CNF training partners, certified networking, I think is what they call this for. And then on this side over here, these are what I guess what I would consider like platform delivery here, and their observability and analysis and so forth, logging, tracing, chaos engineering with Gremlin, chaos mesh. That's the whole thing. So are you expected to know most of these things? If you're doing DevSecOps and SRE, more than likely you're gonna touch most of these things. If you're doing a data engineer, more than likely you're gonna touch most of these things. It's going to be a set of tools that you're going to touch. All right. So to wrap everything up, when we're looking at this, go and read what does cloud native mean for the different clouds for AWS. I mean for Azure. Go read it for what it means for Oracle. Go read it for what it means for GCP, and go read it for what it means in AWS. I'm imploring you to read them all and find the differences and then the similarities to them as well too. We automatically off the rip, you can tell the difference between using the different clusters, Kubernetes clusters in the different clouds and how they're deployed and so forth. And then go play with Oracle. Oracle is still around. They're not dead yet. They're still out there, right? So remember, understand what the cloud native trail map is, right? Let me back out of it because I made it super huge. Make that a little bigger. So again, one, containerization. Two, CI/CD. Three, orchestration and application definition. 4, observability and analysis. 5, service proxy, discovery and mesh. 6, networking, policy and security. 7, distributed database and storage. 8 is streaming and messaging. 9, container registry and runtime. And then 10 is software distribution. And when you come over here to the cloud landscape, it breaks each one of those sections down so you can go look and say, okay, what should I be using? What's popular out there? What can I get my hands on for free? And just start playing with it. Maybe you don't become an expert in it, but maybe you do. But you have the option to do it because one, it's open source, and two, you can follow the freemium method, right? And start playing with it from that perspective. And if you click on these, I didn't show that. If you click on these, they have their own card and as to what the project is about, where it's at, where you can find the repository at. You can find different things about the project, how long it's been around, the funding for that particular project, and so forth, right? So if it's a vital application that you want to integrate into your project, you can just go do some history on it first before you integrate that into your project. All right. So I hope you got a good idea of cloud native. This has been a long tip, but at least you now have an idea. When somebody say, do you understand GitOps? Do you understand cloud native? You have a source of reference to pull from. And two, you can start getting busy with understanding this from every aspect. I'll say this, every engineer who's working with Kubernetes, who's working in security, who's working with compliance, who is working with being cloud native, any part of the cloud, you should automatically know these things in terms of the landscape and understanding the landscape and understanding containers and security, and just at a basic level. It should be like a basic knowledge level for you. If you don't know, go learn it. And then I'll come back next week and quiz you on it. All right. Until then, I'll see you next week.